This is Oklahoma Inside Out, a weekly broadcast of Cimarron Alliance that focuses on the issues, culture, and people important to LGBT Oklahomans. And now, here's your host for Oklahoma Inside Out, Scott J. Hamilton.
Hi, and welcome back to Oklahoma Inside Out. I'm delighted that you're here with us today. We've got a very interesting show for you because we're going to be looking at some of the intricacies of what it means now that the Defense of Marriage Act has fallen, according to the United States Supreme Court. And our guest is going to walk us through what it means for us right here in Oklahoma. Before we get to that, though, I want to say a very special word of thanks to our guest last week, Nate Benner, Mr. Leather Oklahoma, who was here talking about Kink Weekend, which is coming up real soon. And it was just a lot of fun talking with him and learning a little more about the leather community within our community. And those are the kinds of things that we like to do here, is learn more about each other so that we're more comfortable in community. And today, you're going to be learning a whole lot, and I'm glad that you're with us. Our guest has all the answers to some very important questions, and we'll be back with him right after we take this quick break.
This edition of Oklahoma Inside Out is made possible through the generosity of friends and supporters like you. To support this program and the advancement of equal rights for LGBT Oklahomans, please consider making a generous gift today at cimarronalliance.org.
As I said at the top of the show, we're talking today about the Defense of Marriage Act and how the Supreme Court has said no more of that in terms of the way it discriminates against LGBT people in the United States. Our guest today is not making his first appearance on the show, but the first appearance as our legal correspondent, and I'm really grateful that Jeff Riles could be with us today. I must admit I was a little intimidated when he walked in with this big lawyerly briefcase and all these files. I said, wait, you're already over my head. So we have an agreement. Today on our show, we're going to keep things in layman's terms so that I can understand them, and I know if I can, then certainly our audience can because they're more intelligent than I am. Jeff, welcome back to Oklahoma Inside Out.
Hey, thank you, Scott, and I also appreciate the promotion to being legal correspondent today, so that's very exciting.
See, that's just one more thing for your CV.
There you go. That's exactly right.
Not that you're looking for a job, of course.
No, I'm very happy with my current job, but I'm delighted to be here, and I am also really excited to be able to share some perspectives about what the Supreme Court's decision on the Defense of Marriage Act means, not only just in terms of what it means for people across the country, but also importantly for people here in Oklahoma.
But before we get into the legal part, let me just ask you, as a gay man, what was your visceral reaction when you heard the court's ruling?
Well, it's a little bit of a difficult question because I am a gay man, but I'm also a lawyer, and so I have been watching and following these cases with a lot of interest, and it was a good day. It was a good feeling. It was wonderful to know that the things that I have been taught in law school, the things that I believe about our Constitution, truly prevailed, and that was really exciting for me.
So let's look at this. What did the court say, and what does it mean?
Yeah, so DOMA, as everyone really has come to learn, it was the Defense of Marriage Act, which was a law passed in the 90s that, for our purposes, said that marriage on the federal level is going to be defined as being between one man and one woman. What that meant practically is if you have a state where same-sex marriage was legal, for federal purposes, the federal government wouldn't recognize that marriage, and so there was obviously a tension. And what happened in DOMA is you have a woman who was married in the state of New York. She actually met her eventual wife in the late 60s, and she was married in the state of New York legally as a same-sex couple. And when her spouse passed away, she inherited her estate. And the IRS has provisions for taxing everything, of course, but particularly an estate tax is what was at issue in this case. And so when she inherited that money, she had to pay a hefty tax. But if you're recognized as a spouse, if it's a legal marriage, you wouldn't have to have paid that tax. And so she had a really hefty bill because the federal government wouldn't recognize her same-sex marriage in the state of New York. She obviously brought a lawsuit for very valid reasons. One, she didn't want to pay the bill, and two, she thought it was unconstitutional, and it turns out the Supreme Court agreed with her.
I have to say, I had the opportunity to work with Edie Windsor in New York. And,
Oh, very cool.
found her to be an incredibly gracious person, but timid, very quiet, an advocate certainly, but never, ever would I have categorized her as an activist. And this took something very, very personal for her. I mean, I saw the way that she cared for her wife, and it was absolute love, absolute devotion. And for her to just stand up and say, no, this is wrong, that took a lot for a woman of her age.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's a good reminder that this case was really started because someone was wronged, just like most cases do. And it ultimately ended up being that she, I think, brought justice for a lot of people, which is very, very exciting.
It is very exciting, and now that the fireworks have kind of died down,
Sure.
What does it mean at the federal level? So let's I'll use myself as an example.
Sure.
Wayne and I are married in Connecticut.
Okay.
Heretofore, the federal government has not recognized that.
Right.
Where do we stand today?
Well, I mean, your marriage is obviously still legal in Connecticut. If you were to leave Oklahoma today and go back to the state of Connecticut, your marriage would be perfectly valid. And also, more importantly, Section 3, which was what at issue at DOMA, would also say that your marriage in Connecticut was legal. There's lots of questions, though, since you're from Connecticut and your marriage is from Connecticut anyway, and you now live in Oklahoma. What does that mean? Does that have an impact on you? Because Oklahoma still has a constitutional restriction on same-sex marriages. And so there's lots of consternation and commentary about that topic. What does that actually mean for someone just like you?
And I know it's very, very early, and it's going to take a long time to unravel that. But at first glance, where do you think we stand?
Well, there are two arguments here. I mean, the Supreme Court made its decision that said that the federal government can't basically tell states that you have to define marriage like this. And so the one school of thought says that someone like you who's living in Oklahoma where the state doesn't recognize marriage is that the decision really doesn't impact you. Why is that? They're basically arguing that, well, even though the Supreme Court made its decision, it's really about what the state says is valid. And in this instance, it would be the state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma says we don't recognize your marriage. The Supreme Court of the United States actually said, you know what, federal government, you can't tell a state what your marriage is. And so under that school of thought, people are saying, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to enjoy those same federal benefits living in Oklahoma. And the other school of thought is...
Jeff, we're coming up on a break, but I want to get more into the second line of thinking, and we'll do that right after we come back.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm David Macy, a board member of the Cimarron Alliance, and I'm asking for your help. We work every single day to make life better for gay Oklahomans, now and for generations to come. But we can't do it without you. Please consider making a gift of just $20 a month to the Cimarron Alliance and be a part of our march toward equality. Visit www.cimarronalliance.org today and make your pledge. It's a gift you can feel good about giving.
If you rely on the daily paper and local television news for information about your local, state, and federal government, then you are only getting half the story. The Oklahoma Observer goes beyond what other news sources provide. In fact, we offer news, analysis, and commentary that you can't find anywhere else. As quickly as things change at the state and federal levels, we all need to know how legislation affects our community and ourselves. But how can we make sense of what's happening at the state capitol and in Washington? The answer is the Oklahoma Observer. We make the information and the impact on you easy to understand. This way you can make truly informed decisions about your elected officials, community, and family. If you've never read the Oklahoma Observer or haven't read it in a while, I hope you'll take a look. You might be surprised just how much help we can be to you. Visit us today at okobserver.net. Our only agenda is to provide critical news for critical thinkers.
You're listening to Oklahoma Inside Out. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, and our guest today is attorney Jeff Riles. Jeff, just before the break, you said that one school of thought is that living in a state that doesn't recognize same-gender marriage, that we may not be afforded the same rights and responsibilities of a couple in terms of the federal government's view. But what's the other line of thinking?
Yeah, the other line of thinking is, and it's sort of personally what I think. You know, if you have like I said earlier, you're married in Connecticut, you live in Oklahoma, that doesn't mean that when you go back to Connecticut, the state of Connecticut doesn't recognize your marriage. So even though the state of Oklahoma might not recognize your marriage, it certainly can't invalidate your marriage. It can't tell you that your marriage is no longer legal under the laws of Connecticut. And so under that school of thought, which is something that I personally think is what we're going to see play out, the DOMA decision is really, really significant because it says that even though you're not recognized in Oklahoma, you're still legally married in the state of Connecticut, and that was what DOMA was all about. It was saying that under the federal government, we can't tell a state that you can't, recognize someone who has a same-sex marriage. And so in this instance, federal government, you can't tell Connecticut that that marriage is invalid. It doesn't really matter what Oklahoma thinks. It matters what the state in where you got married, the state of ceremony is what legal scholars call it. It matters what they think. It matters what that state says. And so for the purposes of filing federal taxes or the benefits that are related thereto, you would be fully legally recognized as a married couple under the laws of Connecticut.
We should point out that there are over 1,100 different rights that are afforded to a heterosexual married couple that are denied right now to a same-gender couple.
Oh, absolutely. From, estate planning issues to Social Security benefits to Medicare benefits. There are rollover tax exemptions for someone with a 401k. The list goes on and on. If your spouse passes away, you automatically inherit their estate. And as Edith Windsor learned, when you inherit that estate, there are tax consequences associated with that. Visitation rights in hospitals. The list is long and significant. And I think that's another reason why this is so incredibly profound.
Now, you're already talking about two distinct lines of thinking on this. That indicates to me that this is a far from decided issue, because we know that already there's a case against the state of Oklahoma that's in federal court now, filed by some friends in Tulsa, and it has been languishing in the federal court system for many years now. I'm already hearing from people who are gearing up now to start challenging the state of Oklahoma. So my sense is that we are really just getting ready for a powerful storm of litigation.
I think you're right, and I think what's really, really, some people get bogged down in these details, and as a lawyer I can, but I think what's so important, the big takeaway, is that the Supreme Court of the United States used an argument under the Equal Protection Clause of the Fifth Amendment, this whole idea that everybody ought to be treated equally. And it looked at what DOMA was and what it was all about. It studied its context, it studied its history, it studied why it came into existence, and decided that the only reason that DOMA ever passed was to discriminate against a group of people. In this case, gay people, same-sex couples more specifically. And for the Supreme Court to make that decision, to make that ruling, and to say that the Constitution just does not allow that kind of blatant discrimination in the same-sex marriage context is profound. We've never, ever had a decision like that. And that is going to be precedent. It's going to be precedent in states across the country. It will become precedent here in Oklahoma. And it will literally raise the bar in terms of having solid legal footing to stand on as we make these challenges not only here in Oklahoma but across the country where same-sex couples are not legally allowed to marry.
Not surprisingly, on the day of the ruling, Governor Fallon said that she disagreed with it and she strongly supports traditional marriage and will not change the definition here.
Well, I have always believed that when you knock the doors of your neighbors here in Oklahoma, when you go live in, for example, my next door neighbors or people down the street, and you have conversations with everyday Oklahomans, and you talk to them about the things that are impacting your life, they're worried about the same things we are. They're worried about taxes, they're worried about Medicare, they're worried about that 401k and that option. And when you live your life genuinely and openly, you're able to communicate with people in ways that you never have been able to do so before. And I think that's the spirit of Oklahoma that is exciting to me, that even as there might be some political unrest out there, everyday folks, everyday Oklahomans, they get it because they realize that there's nothing different here. People are asking for the same basic legal fundamental rights that you enjoy. I ought to be able to enjoy those too. That's not a difficult concept to understand. In fact, It's a paramount concept in our Constitution, and that's really the Oklahoman that I believe in.
You mentioned some of the things that we're all concerned about, and one thing you didn't mention, but more and more of us are concerned today about schools, because more and more of us are having families. We're coming up on a break, but when we get back, Jeff, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about how unfairly this treats children of same-gender couples, and what, if any, changes are going to be coming about as a result of this ruling.
Sure, absolutely.
We're talking today with attorney Jeff Riles, and our topic is the Defense of Marriage Act and how it's no longer standing.
Hi, I'm Lorette Taylor, past chair of Cimarron Alliance. I joined the board because I believe in the vision and the work of this organization. We're working every day listening to the concerns of our community and helping to address those very concerns. I hope you will consider supporting Cimarron with a gift. Even $10 a month will help. Working together, we really can achieve equality for all gay Oklahomans. Please visit www.cimarronalliance.org and make your gift today.
If you rely on the daily paper and local television news for information about your local, state, and federal government, then you are only getting half the story. The Oklahoma Observer goes beyond what other news sources provide. In fact, we offer news, analysis, and commentary that you can't find anywhere else. As quickly as things change at the state and federal levels, we all need to know how legislation affects our community and ourselves. But how can we make sense of what's happening at the state capitol and in Washington? The answer is the Oklahoma Observer. We make the information and the impact on you easy to understand. This way you can make truly informed decisions about your elected officials, community, and family. If you've never read the Oklahoma Observer or haven't read it in a while, I hope you'll take a look. You might be surprised just how much help we can be to you. Visit us today at okobserver.net. Our only agenda is to provide critical news.
This is our last segment.
Okay.
Just before our break, I asked Jeff about how is this going to impact couples with children? I know one of the big points of consternation is in Oklahoma, for example, a same-gender couple cannot adopt a child. Only one of the parents can. And that leaves the child vulnerable in terms of Social Security survivor benefits, for example. How is this going to impact children?
Well, I think we saw a little glimpse of what the Supreme Court thought, at least in terms of, Justice Kennedy, who wrote the majority opinion in DOMA. And when he was actually during oral arguments for the Proposition 8 case, the other same-sex marriage case out there, one of the big things that he kept talking about was, what about the children? What about the kids? He was talking specifically about all of the kids in California who have same-sex parents. And the state has done something here that says to those kids, your mom, your father, your parents, they're not good enough. They're not equal. And I think that sheds some light on what the constitutional thinking is really going to be in terms of this. But as a practical matter, I think it's important because people who are in same-sex relationships and have children, particularly as a result of the DOMA decision, I think are going to begin seeing some Social Security guidance, IRS guidance, and other types of federal agencies and regulations start coming forward that make it easier for same-sex couples to not only adopt, but also to get the access to services and care that they need. We've already seen, for example, with the Department of Homeland Security in the immigration context, come out immediately with decisions and rulings that help binational same-sex couples and get that kind of guidance. And I suspect we'll begin seeing other guidance from other agencies do the same in light of the DOMA decision.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the immigration piece, because before, if an American citizen married a Mexican citizen in Mexico City where same-gender marriage is legal, that would hold no standing here, and so they could not bring their spouse into this country.
Right.
The same way that a straight couple could.
Right.
That's changed now.
It's changed because Section 3 under DOMA, which is what E.D. Windsor challenged specifically, is gone. And that was what said that it has to be a marriage between a man and a woman. That's gone. That no longer exists for federal interpretation. So the interpretation is marriage. And so whatever the state decides marriage is. And so if you're married in a state that allows same-sex, marriages, then the federal law treats you just like any other couple. And so that's why we're beginning to see this sort of good news for binational couples who are legally married in a same-sex couple relationship wherever that state might be. It's good news. And in fact, I was in San Francisco when the decision came down, and there was a big immigration lawyer conference going on, and a few of my colleagues were celebrating the first green card being issued. I know that's a funny thing for lawyers to celebrate, but it was really cool to see a binational couple receive their green card because the Constitution says we ought to be treating everybody equal. And that was a really cool and significant moment as well.
Real quick before we wind up this broadcast, Jeff, what's next? What do you see looking in your crystal ball? What's next in terms of rolling this out?
The Constitution is on the side of equality. Public opinion is on the side of equality. We have a lot of work to do yet in states that haven't quite come that far, but now we have some footing to stand on, and we know it. And we know that the Constitution says we ought to be treating people equally. And we are on the cusp, I think, of a revolution in terms of marriage equality and beginning to treat not only people that we think are a little bit different from us, but everybody equally.
Jeff, those are very, very encouraging words. And thank you for helping to shed more light on this. And as always, I'm going to ask you to come back and see us real soon.
Of course, anytime.
Our guest today has been attorney Jeff Riles, and I'm grateful that he was with us. I'm grateful that you were with us, and I hope that you will share this broadcast with your friends. Also, we have created a weekly commentary. It's a video commentary, and it's available on the Cimarron Alliance website as well as our YouTube page, and you can find us also on Facebook. There are many ways to connect with us, and I hope that you will, because we need your support, we need your ideas, we need your encouragement, and we need your courage as all of us together work toward equality. Thank you to our producer, Chris Moyer, our associate producer, Guy Peters. Our announcer is Lisa Pizzeri. Cimarron Alliance Board co-chairs are Randall Marsh and Catherine Primus. For all of us at Oklahoma Inside Out and Cimarron Alliance, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you for joining us, and until next time, hang on to the vision of a fair and just Oklahoma.
Oklahoma Inside Out is a production of Cimarron Alliance, Central Oklahoma's preeminent LGBT advocacy and education organization. If you have a topic you would like to hear discussed or a person who you would like to hear interviewed, please call 405-495-9300 or email oklahomainsideout@cimarronalliance.org. Please feel free to share the link to this broadcast with your friends.